Sam, I know you're here but silent. It's recording, so I think we're good. Yep, I think we're good. So I am going to quickly just, give you guys a overview of this event today for all the guests who some of you may not have been here before. So this is Triple Threat Panel. It's one of Advent's signature events, and this panel draws on perspectives from 3 great people, and we're focused on one topic. And it's designed to help you all broaden your skills, your knowledge, and your connections. So today our topic is innovation in business. And my name is Lisa Speer. I run a strategic branding business called Speerhead Solutions. And I also have a podcast, Branding BFF. And I help new businesses create their brand, and I help existing businesses strengthen their brand. I also want to introduce Mike Barugel, he is my right-hand logistics behind the scenes support, and he'll also be running our Q&A today at the end. And Mike is a general business counselor at the Small Business and Technology Development Center, where he helps existing small businesses grow, scale, and work through challenges. So before we get to our panelists, Mike, I know you have some tips for us today since we're running Zoom as a webinar. So if you can let the guests know what to expect and how we're gonna handle Q&A and all the different things today.
Yes, sounds great. Thanks, Lisa. It's great to see everybody. Welcome to Triple Threat in June. So just a couple really quick things to make the most out of the session today. So feel free to use the chat to say hi to anybody else that's here in attendance. And if you have any technical questions, you can always type those in the chat. You can just make sure that the to field says all panelists and attendees if you want to chat with the others that are on here. If you want to submit a question for our panel, which will be basically held at the end, the last 10 or 15 minutes or so of our session, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask a question, and that's how we know that that question is for our panel at the end, so make sure to do that. You can also switch between speaker view and gallery view if you'd rather see just the person speaking or all of the panelists on the screen. And the last thing is, if you see any names on the screen that don't have a video on them, you can actually click the 3 dots and click hide non-video participants so that we're only focusing on our moderator and panelists while they're speaking today. And I will duck out a video here in just a moment so we can really just feature our panel. So I think that's all. Enjoy.
Okay, great. So we're super grateful to have this panel today because they were originally scheduled for February. We had a snow day that really didn't become a snow day. So we unfortunately probably prematurely rescheduled this, but we're super excited to have you guys here. And I want to make sure and let you guys introduce yourselves because you know yourself best. And so we're going to start with, who are you? What do you do? And our icebreaker today is, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? So let's start with Sam.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Sam Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Vision. We're a color search engine and home planning tool that you all can visit right now at vision.co. So you can take any color and find high quality decor in that specific color or your color palette. When I was a child, I wanted to be a football player, which obviously limitations that beyond my control could not do that. So I wanted to work for the Redskins in marketing was my childhood dream. Somehow work for the Redskins. Yeah, didn't work out.
Okay, Desmond.
So I'm originally from New York, so that whole Redskins, yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
We love Saquon in our family though, because we're Penn Staters. So I appreciate
okay.
Yes,
gotcha,
so
gotcha.
we give leniency to Saquon.
Gotcha. All love then, all love. But I'm Desmond Wiggan. Good afternoon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of BatteryXchange. We're a rental platform and we provide on-demand portable batteries for cell phone users. So think of it as like the scooter concept that you see around the city, literally for portable batteries to charge your cell phone when you're at events, and you're right now not at events. So we're kind of figuring it out. But we're looking to move into the bar space. That's kind of like the distribution channel we're looking into right now, based out of Charlotte. And when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a pastor. So I grew up in the church, and I just really fell in love with just being on the podium and just being able to talk about God. I was just like just really indulged in it. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to be. And then that kind of slowly changed when I got into like middle school. But you know, that's
I can
random.
see so.
And Dan, how about you?
I'm a New Yorker as well, but I've been here in Charlotte for over 20 years. I'm the strategy and growth officer for a company called BrightDime, which is a digital financial wellness solution. We'll talk more about it later, but we're working with employers to offer a financial wellness benefit for their employees, based in Charlotte, and actually sit in Advent, or used to. Well, hopefully at some point soon. I have sort of a tale of two careers. I spent 25 years in big company roles in human resources, was the HR head for Wells Fargo Securities for 14 years, and then with Bank of America for 5 years. Have been also pretty active in the sort of startup community for the last 4 years. In addition to BrightDime, I volunteer with Queen City FinTech and Innovate Charlotte. So I'm excited to be part of this panel and help other founders and other entrepreneurs. I guess when I was a kid, like Sam and a lot of people, I had a desire to be a professional athlete. In my case, it was tennis. So I grew up playing a lot of tennis in the sort of John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors era, and did some tournaments and realized that I wasn't nearly good enough, but still had a lot of fun with the game, and played growing up and in college. And now I play a little bit. My sole objective really is just to stay injury-free right now, but realized that professional athleticism was not in my future.
Got it. Well, and I'll just add to, when I was probably in 3rd grade, I wanted to be a librarian so I could read books all day. That's what I thought librarians would be able to do. So,
like that.
Yeah. Well, and the reason we picked this topic, again, this topic was back in February before COVID was on our horizon. So we know that, businesses are continuing to look for ways to stay relevant, to leverage technology, and to be innovative. So, our panelists today, which is so great, is you guys represent a real range. I mean, Sam is more focused in the app world. Desmond's got a product, and Dan, we could almost say it's like a software as service, so to speak. So we've got a good range of representation here today. So first question is, all of your businesses identified a gap in the marketplace, and you use innovation to create something new. So what was the gap that you identified, and how did you turn that into a decision to create a business? And let's start with Desmond.
Yeah, definitely. So I think some of the most, innovative products and like companies come about from like founders being in inconveniences or just finding another way to make something more efficient. And literally that's how we kind of stumbled upon this idea. Me and my co-founder, we were out in mainland China. We were doing our MBA studies and got into an inconvenience, and it was just like, man, why isn't there a more convenient way for us to charge our cell phone while we're moving around? You think about it, you just have the outlets that you gotta hover over, or you have like the locker boxes that you kind of want to, leave your phone into, but now you're disconnected, and it's just like, we didn't want that to be the opportunity. And so it's just like, hey, there has to be another way. And then so we also saw, the sharing economy come in really, really big. Like I said, the scooters, Ubers, all these different things. And it was just like, what if we added an element of the sharing economy within this thing that we all need, which is charging our cell phone at the most convenient time. So literally that was the opportunity. We fell into that inconvenience, and it was just like, let's figure out a solution.
That's great. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I think Desmond nailed it. One of the things I think that makes founders unique is that we're constantly looking at things as they exist and trying to figure out how they can be improved. I don't know if anyone's walked into a Topgolf and thought that could be completely better, but every single time I'm in there, I'm like, this is not how I would have done it. And I think that's how a lot of great ideas start. It was the same way with us. A lot of our decor and a lot of societies, home decor, typically run by the women, have some sort of color palette associated with it. And I thought with existing technology, it was kind of ridiculous that there wasn't a single way, if I had something in mind, that I would be able to find exactly the shade that I wanted. The story for me was I was looking for a green nightstand to match a headboard that my husband and I just purchased. Couldn't even figure out the way to like dictate what the color green was. And then the first time we had our Vision beta, I found the nightstand instantly. So you scratch your own itch in lots of ways. But I think that having a background for me personally in startups, seeing that it was possible, I think a lot of the times people don't start companies because they feel as though it's unreachable or untenable. They don't know the first steps. I'm not a person who knows dev. I've never written a line of code. And so isn't it crazy that I would try to create a technology company? But I think if you've been in a startup or if you are familiar with the inner workings of a startup, a lot of things become a lot more attainable and achievable in your own eyes.
Can you just follow-up point? Can you just describe a little bit more what your app does with color? Because I think that will be useful for people as we're talking about this bigger conversation.
Yeah. Do you like how I assume that everyone knows what it is?
Yeah, yeah. And then I want to come back to Desmond as well before we jump in with Dan. So, because I want to just make sure everybody kind of gets the context for the next pieces.
Definitely. Well, one of the things too that we did during COVID was we actually moved our technology on the web. So you technically can go on the computer now, but you can instigate a color search. You can take a Sherwin-Williams paint color. You can take an image or any type of color value and instigate a search not only to find different products, but also against images as well. So you can see how the color has been used to gain color confidence in your own design. And it's a theory from our perspective, as well as many home brands, that color is going to be the thing that's going to be coming out of this next decade, moving on from the whites, the blacks, and the grays into more of a unique and personable type of home design. And we're leaning into that a lot with our color search engine.
And then coming back to you, Desmond, can you just describe a little bit more about how your product is used in context? And that way, again, next questions will make a little more sense.
What do you know? I just happen to have the product right here. But so the way it works is we have kiosk machines, and these kiosk machines are at particular businesses, event venues, or events. And we're actually about to launch our mobile app. And so that mobile app will allow you to find out where our kiosk machines are located.
Nice.
And then literally, just like I said, like the scooter concept, you rent a product. So for example, this is the product. So it's a portable battery, and I have an iPhone. So this is what I would rent, plug it up to my phone. And then I could have autonomy to keep it as long as I want. I just pay per minute. And then once I'm finished, I use the application again to find another kiosk machine and or the one that I took it from, drop it off, and then literally simple as that.
That's great. Well, it's definitely, I can hear how it's continued to develop since we talked way back when. Okay,
Right,
so Dan, let's hear a little bit, because you weren't the founder. What can you describe about the gap in the marketplace that the company, the founder, discovered, and also however you fit into that?
Yeah. So our founder, David Stedman, comes out of sort of a financial background. He built his career at Goldman Sachs and had his own financial firm for a number of years. And he and we all really have a passion to help those that might not otherwise have access to financial resources. So David built a digital solution that helped users pull together their financial information, have on-demand access to coaching, and some other things that we could talk about. But the gap that we saw was that Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Something like 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 1 in 3 have saved nothing for retirement. Student loans are a big challenge. And the opportunity that we saw was to offer our digital solution through employers as a benefit for their employees. And historically, employers hadn't focused on this topic, but the reality is there's a tremendous amount of research that says that financial stress affects performance and productivity, the ability to retire on time, engagement. So really that's the world that we live in. And the models that were in place before we started all this up, as I mentioned, my background is in HR for 25 years, and certainly this is what we saw, was that there might have been educational seminars and other content that existed for employees, but there was never a personalized digital solution where people can have their own data and on-demand coaching. So that's the gap that we saw. It was an early concept, and it really has taken hold for a small number of companies, including us, across the country. So we're we're marketing BrightDime as sort of a B2B to C type of business model where the employees are the ultimate users, but our clients are the employers. So we're working with employers, whether they're 100 employees up to 25,000 employees across the country. So it's been very, very exciting.
And I think one thing that's really cool is how it's agnostic, like in terms of the financial perspective advice, it's not tied to a particular product or institution, which I think allows people to trust more that what they're gaining is objective.
No doubt. You know, I've spent my whole career in financial services. And, you know, the challenge is a lot of financial companies have great products, but they're really focused on increasing assets under management or selling credit cards or mortgage product. That's not what we're about. We're all about helping people on their financial journey, providing some really cool tools and coaching support. So it's been great. It's been very rewarding, and we're seeing a lot of momentum, even I should say particularly in this COVID environment. There's just a lot of financial stress out there right now. So it's been a important time for us as a company.
Yeah, well, that leads into the next question in terms of like the roles that you all play. So I'm going to keep going with you, Dan. How does innovation come into play in your role as strategy and growth officer?
So, you know, for us, as I mentioned, in a few different ways. Number one, the product in and of itself is quite innovative. One of the things that we built is a platform where users can what's called aggregate their financial information in one place. We partner with a company called Plaid, and it enables the user to have their mortgage and their student loan and their credit cards and their debit cards, their 401k, all in one place, so that this innovative solution allows them to leverage that real data as opposed to just people making assumptions about their spending and debt and so forth. So it's pretty innovative. We have a focus on behavioral science. We feel like, much like perhaps, you know, using a Fitbit could help track sleeping and eating and that type of thing. It'll drive behavior change. We feel the same is true in the financial space. So this data-based orientation toward financial solution is relatively innovative, coupled with the coaching, where we have live coaches where the user employees can click a button and access our financial coaches on demand through chat. So from a product perspective, that's been innovative. The other thing, though, that we're doing that we think is innovative is the way we're partnering with companies and increasing engagement. So for example, you know, one of our clients in town is BatteryXchange. So we partner with their HR team and really try to talk about how we can build this into their benefit strategy, how we can get employees engaged, how just different ways that we can increase the understanding. We've had different contests, different ways that employees get focused on their financial health. So I think between the product and some sort of communication and engagement strategies, we're really trying to solve problems in innovative ways.
That's great. Well, and I know it's a little different with you, Sam and Desmond. You both went through incubators last year. What changes are you making, or what did you learn from the incubator that you're incorporating into your business now? And
Desmond,
whoever wants to go first.
I'll let Desmond start.
Of course. No, so I mean, you know, for one, innovation is big within the company. I think you know, even it's literally a part of our core value. You know, it's like we're always seeking. I have some like really smart people on my team, so it's just like, how can we do things just a little bit better, right? More efficient. I think that one of the things I always say is just like, how can we be bigger than batteries? And I think a lot of that has been through some of the insight that we've gotten through incubators. So I guess the most recent one we did was the Riot Accelerator program, right, up in Raleigh, Durham. And I loved going through the program because it pushed us in so many different levels. We started getting insight into the IoT world and some of the things that we could do on a technological standpoint, where a lot of times, sometimes we think just product wise, right? And so I think it expounded our potential portfolio as we grow. And one of the things that we're actually working on now through COVID is just more so of using our new iteration of our kiosk machine in a different way. And in essence, that wasn't something that we were initially thinking about, but again, just kind of maneuvering and getting that insight and leaning on these incubators, I think is really, really huge. But you just got to find the right one that fits within your mold. For us, Riot was perfect hardware-based companies in the product world, so they could, in essence, also connect us. You know, pre-COVID, we were moving into our first convention center space, and those are partnerships that we were able to build through the accelerator. So
yeah, and basically on what Desmond's saying too, I think it's about whatever the accelerator is the most important aspect of it. For us, it wasn't necessarily a lean on innovation. Ours was a marketing accelerator. It's called the Brandery. It's a generator accelerator out of Cincinnati. And we were there last fall for a few months because for us, the biggest challenges for B2C anything is breaking through the noise to figure out what's the best strategy, especially when you have a limited budget as a startup, to really make the most traction work for your dollar. So for us, that was a huge reason why we wanted to go into an accelerator. But I think the primary reason, and Desmond, you can disagree with me, is definitely for the network effect that you don't innately have as a founder, especially being not in Silicon Valley or in New York City or in a place that really cultivates those types of networks and communication. Charlotte is still pretty far behind in that aspect. So for us, our primary initiative as far as that was marketing and the network effect. As far as innovation is concerned, we are the only color search engine right now. So it's more about how do we deploy with the resources that we have, the most strategic methods of improving or differentiating ourselves that captures a user and then keeps them. And there's a lot of implications when it comes to home design. So it's about making the smartest choice for your target demographic.
And then in terms of both of you have a role as CEO. So how do you see innovation coming into play in your role as CEO? So, right, like you guys saw the gap in the marketplace, but for you, Sam and Desmond, you know, on an ongoing basis, what's the role of innovation in your role?
Yeah, I think that if it's okay, Desmond, because I saw you moving. Yeah, I think with the most important element from the role of a CEO is the actual understanding of what technology can do. And I think for me, I was very lucky that I worked at a fintech before. I had a front row seat to see what are, if you're asking for a specific thing to be developed, what does that mean as far as the people that you need and the timeline and what is actually feasible with the budget that you have. So I think as a CEO, when you're considering innovation, it's more about the logistics and operations of innovation. Other implications can be tested out as far as we stood in South Park Mall and asked 250 people what were their color stories, what were their issues, and it helped guide some of our lights. And then you keep reiterating that process over and over again every single time a new issue arises that you think you have the right answer to, but you shouldn't just rely on your gut. So it's my job to make sure that we stay on track. It's possible, it's feasible, and I've lined up the elements to make sure it can happen. Other than that, it's a team effort as far as continually thinking about ways to make ourselves better.
And how about you, Desmond?
I would definitely say the team effort. That's where I was going to kind of lead into as well. I think I approach it from two different perspectives. One perspective is like, because I immerse myself so much with like other companies and just the technologies that are out there and how it could be applicable, sometimes I kind of give some type of vision as far as like, I would like us to get here, right? And then honestly, I told you, I have like really smart people and they kind of build within and we work together cross team, wise, to figure out how we get to that end goal. I think that's one thing. And then, another thing that we, in essence, always try to just encourage is just how can you be innovative in your particular realm? So we have a lot of advisors and mentors that, in essence, are very, very versed in particular aspects of technology. And it's just like, how can we be a part of like the next trends for tomorrow within our, current product or our next iteration? And so it's just really thinking that through. But I think my team does a really good job of working together and figuring out how we can get to that bigger goal and, what that bigger goal would in essence to allow us to do But yeah, I totally say that the teamwork is huge.
Now, I know with you, Dan, you've mentioned that you have like different types of partnerships or sponsorships. Like, what are you looking for in those relationships?
Yeah, so one of the things, we're about a 6-year-old company, and David's been about 2 years building out the platform. I've been with the company about 4 years. My role is, a lot of the sort of externally facing revenue channel partnerships, business development. One of the things that we figured out pretty quickly as a B2B company is that, we don't have a big sales team. We have a very small sales team, and the beyond some of the relationships that we had with companies across the country, we figured out that by leveraging partners that already had clients was really going to be an important part of our approach. So, for example, we work with benefits consulting firms across the country, whether they be big ones like Mercer or Aon, or smaller ones across the country. We work with platforms where it could be a benefits administration platform or a wellness platform where historically they might have had different tiles for multiple components of the wellness benefits, and are now starting to think about financial wellness. So literally before this call, we're pretty close to signing up a partnership with a big wellness company, which again, they've got lots of clients. We've got a distinctive product, so we look for we're having partnership discussions with a number of nonprofit organizations that have, as part of the sort of a pillar of their strategy, financial education, financial well-being, whether it be Habitat for Humanity or others. We're talking with other credit unions that might look at a solution like ours as additive for their members. So we've got different types of partnerships, and they take a longer time to develop. I guess what we're looking for really is, to answer your question, is additional ways to scale our business. And the most successful partnerships are those that, what we do is complementary to what they do, and vice versa. It has to be sort of a two-way thing. So there's sort of it's got to be the right product. But I'll tell you what I've learned also, especially over the last year and a half, is that a lot of it is more relationship. Partners. These things never go as smoothly as you plan when you're drawing up a contract. So, are they going to be there for you, and are you going to be there for them when things go bump and when things come up, and so we spend a lot of time trying to develop relationships with partners to really get a sense of who they are as people, and are their visions aligned with our vision. We're trying to build a big business, and we're seeing good growth, but at the end of the day, we're also extremely focused on helping people. We're very much of a values-based organization, so we look for that also with our partners. We think that that's important when we engage with partners, either on a formal or informal basis.
Well, I think because all of these businesses are so innovative, there's likely that a business may try to copy you. So what will you do if you do have, and this will be for everybody, if a business tries to copy you, and how will you continue to differentiate yourself when the marketplace does get a little more crowded? And whoever wants to jump on this one, feel free to start.
I think it's a tough question, so no one wants to jump on it. Because it's one of those things that I think as a founder, especially early on, you have like the alerts, you sign up for the newsletters that are in your industry, and you always like read it. And there's a moment where you're like, oh shit, that says color and search in the same sentence, and you press it and your heart's like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then it ends up not being. It's Home Depot, and they're looking at paint again, and you get text messages from everyone saying Home Depot's in the game now, and you're like, people have been searching for paint for at least a decade now. It's one of those things that you just got to stay focused, try not to sweat it too much as far as competition is concerned. I think that a lack of competitors is also a signal as well. So if there are people who are kind of floating in your realm, that's okay. I think it's very natural. There's always some sort of tit for tat when competition is concerned. But for us, I think you just have to have core values that guide your thinking. And then when a competitor does arise, you have a conversation with your team about the differences between the two. Why did we make a certain decision that we made? Is it still the best decision? And are there any changes that we need to make based on what they're doing? I don't think there's a single patent in the world that can defend anyone from a competitor coming up and finding a new way to do certain things. So I have feelings about patents, and I think they're a waste of money. But that's a personal opinion we can go into and for another time. It's more about figuring out what your niche is and really diving into that and making it as special as possible.
That's great.
Yeah, I think you brought up some good points. I would not change any of that, to be honest. I think the only thing that I would add, and just kind of the perspective we have, well, honestly, this personal perspective, I think competition is okay. It's something that you can't, stop. You kind of want to have competition to some extent. I mean, you look at Uber and Lyft, like people are still going to gravitate towards whatever, whether it's the UI or just the functionality of the app or whatever it is. And so for me, I think, and the company is like, brand and our connection to community, I think is really, really important. And so that's how we seek to differentiate ourselves, moving forward and for the next few years, because that's the core essence of, our mission is connecting people to things and people that matter to the most. And then also there are some different competitors in our space. And I think one of the things that I talked about it a little bit earlier, as far as just having a roadmap is just this is where we want to be over the next few years or even the next year. And if somebody comes and, they have something that's, quite competitive, maybe it's releasing something a little bit quicker than we wanted to, right? Just to kind of one up them. And I think lastly for us, there's over 300 million cell phone users in the US alone, right? It's just there's enough market here to where, if we were even to grab the East Coast, which is, within our next few years, potentially is, that's good. And we're making, some good growth, and then, we'll see what we do over time. So I think just not, as Sam said, not getting too frightened by every article that you see but communication to the team, I think, has been important. And that's allowed us to bring in different perspectives to say how we should approach something where we had it planned this way, but they came in and now we have to adapt a little bit. So I think all those kind of work together.
Yeah. How about you, Dan?
I definitely connect with Desmond's point about just the size of the market. For us, the reality is there are a lot of competitors. There, financial wellness, financial education, there are many different flavors of it. We think there's some aspects of what we do that are pretty distinctive, but at the end of the day, it's these are all just sort of different shades, to use a Vision language here.
Works for me, Dan.
Yeah, right. So for us, I guess, there are two things that come to mind. Number one is that it's still a relatively new topic for employers to offer financial type benefits to their employees, and there's a big market. And I say truthfully to people I talk with, if somebody selects somebody else, but more employers are offering this, it's ultimately, I think, better for us anyway, just because I think the awareness goes up. What we need to focus on is understanding, our user experiences, the employees, and what they're getting out of it, and trying to advance our product so that we're continually making it better. Sometimes that requires additional funding. So we're, which is sort of a dynamic that we all face, right? But I think continually trying to enhance your product is important. I'll also say, on a less tech basis, I truly believe that building strong relationships creates a moat. And, regardless if somebody has a better product or a different product, I think if we're able to really build strong relationships in the marketplace, and people do business with folks that they want to do business with. So I think that we spend a lot of time really trying to be experts in our field, talk at different programs, and just help employers in a consultative type way, even if our program isn't best for them. And ultimately that comes back, ultimately we think it creates a level of stickiness that, we can't go chasing the next 10 competitors that are coming out with a new product.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with innovation. With innovation, you're always looking ahead too. So if you're always looking around you, you might not be looking ahead.
Yep.
So, the last, where we were when we were going to originally do this in February, things have changed a lot in the world. So how is COVID and or Black Lives Matter prompting changes within your business? And we'll start with Sam.
Yeah, I think this, and I knew you were going to ask this question, so I didn't make this point. But when you're looking at companies like Lyft and Uber, like Desmond was mentioning, what is the difference? And for us, or for me personally, I guess I'll talk personally and then how it treads into our business. I didn't like the way Uber was treating its female employees, so I'm an avid Lyft user. And it's very much political for me, the decision that I made. I don't have Uber on my phone. Anyone who does, I'm like, you should switch to Lyft. I don't care where they are right now. I didn't like that. And as a startup founder, I believe very much so how people treat their culture at the beginning defines who they are throughout and who they always were. So when it comes to whether it's Pride this week, Black Lives Matters, or any type of topic that's relevant where we can have a voice for equality, we will always do so. We were built on the foundation of acceptance. People on my team are all different types of people, and I want them to feel welcome. And the only way to truly make someone feel welcome is not to have just a stance that says we support this. It's to be vocal in the support, not when the opportunity is comfortable, but when it is difficult. So we made a clear decision at the beginning for each entity, for every different topic, that we would try not to take, even though I am sucking up the volume here and I'm not Black, and I apologize for that specific thing. But we very much were like, we need to stop all marketing on that week. We need to make sure that we're only highlighting what's important and not take up all the air in the room. And we believe that that is something that when someone looks at our organization, we are proud to be known for that, no matter what the implication may be.
Yeah, and I think that's going back to, I've heard, several of you all talking about values, and I think that's what I hear is it's aligning with your values. It's not a one-time deal, it's the ongoing, and it starts from your foundation.
Yeah.
How about you, Desmond? So like, how has COVID or Black Lives Matter prompting changes in your business?
Like I mentioned earlier, COVID hit us hard. We really had to figure out how we maneuver because a lot of our business model, at least first, was about events and people kind of gathering together. So we had to be innovative. But honestly, as a founder, I kind of took a step back and we did a few things. So one was just really seeing the needs of entrepreneurs within our network. And so one of the things that we did, and I try to lead that, was just, start to have different conversations about things that are important. I feel like different individuals were being affected bigger than just, their company and their business and pivoting and doing all that stuff. So I really focused on mental health. So bringing that to not only my founder crew, but also like my community. I, had conversations about health and wellness, and then just kind of navigating on an investor side, like what do we do next type of thing. And so I feel like, again, it just allowed us to be human for a second. And that's, again, it leads back to the core essence and the mission of community and how important that is. On our product side, so initially we were building this product and literally we had raised a crowdfunding raise in Q4. Luckily, that gave us enough capital runway for the next few months, allowed us to build out the mobile app and then this new kiosk machine. And so the entire time we have this like digital screen, it's like 43 inches tall or high. And we're like, man, we're going to use this for like branding and advertisement, right? And it was just like, man, we were so tunnel vision. But some of the things that we noticed through COVID, it was just like, man, individuals are looking for access to information and then credible information. And then also we started to see like these bars and restaurants, the ones that were open, they were just sticking this paper, just construction paper, printer paper on the wall. And it was just like, that was like the signage and that was the communication to their customers. And we're just like, man, we could do so much more with our our screens. You know, we can in essence connect businesses to customers and have that be a form of communication. And then also with the access to information, we could have, you know, our kiosk machines along the light rail. And it could be anything from like voting, you know, things that are going on with your community and just those different aspects. So I think it forced us to look deeper down and really pull out what was important to us, and then provide that to the community as well. And then, you know, I don't know if you knew, I'm a Black founder, you know.
Yes,
so,
I do.
Right. And
Wait,
then,
what?
So, like, I mean, right, crazy. So like for me, you know, on a personal note, it definitely hits hard. It's funny because I always say, you know, I'm in the tech space and I try to be well dressed or like a clean t-shirt, but like I wear my hoodie at times. You know, I'm in some neighborhoods where, you know, if an individual doesn't know me, like they can in essence judge me for something else, and you know, my whole life could change. And I've actually been in those atmospheres. So for me, and us, it really hits hard with, you know, several individuals being, you know, Black and African American. But, you know, in essence, diversity is huge. So we, in actuality, been having a lot of community guideline communication and then conversations internally, and just kind of figuring out, you know, what can we do. And I think it goes back to one of the reasons why I really got into tech, and I really honestly came back to America. I had got kind of with some racism when I was out in China. But again, it just propelled me on a global level to continue to change the narrative of African Americans in technology. And so I think that this just always, like, everybody, you know, everybody can't protest, everybody can't, you know, do this, but what can you do in your space? And literally, I'm trying to change that narrative. I'm trying to push and put pressure on the, you know, racism in the VC world or in the fundraising world. And that's what I could do to, you know, open up the door for the next generation or the next African-American founder to kind of come about. So that's kind of what we're doing. But there's still, so, and I mean, I think the last thing I'll say is like, the needed conversation has always been wanted. And like, we've been wanting to have this conversation. Now that it's here, you know, let's have some action items and actually do some things about them. And I think, you know, starting to have these conversations here is, you know, really cool, but I'd be looking forward to the next few months, the next few years, and what has changed, especially in Charlotte.
Yeah. How about you, Dan, with your business?
Yeah, Desmond, that's awesome. And great day, Juneteenth today to be talking about this topic. So, you know, for I guess internally, first of all, for just personally, you know, having spent most of my corporate career in HR and helping lead diversity and inclusion committees and things like that, it's just all of what we're talking about here is just sort of central to who I am. Part of the reason why I joined up with BrightDime is everyone is feeling that way too. We talk openly about challenges and what role we can play. So it's hit all of us hard in terms of all the events that are going on here. We're continually trying to figure out how we can, you know, sort of advance this individually as a team. From a business perspective, there are a couple things relative to Black Lives Matter. For example, we've got 2 grant proposals that we're working on right now with nonprofits where we can hopefully make an impact in a community. We're working with one nonprofit in Florida that's partnering with a community college with predominantly African-American students, and are trying to raise a grant of $50,000 to really do some really creative things. We're hoping to get that. In terms of COVID, you know, initially it created a real challenge for us and our business because we're primarily selling into HR leaders as the decision makers, and their very first appropriately priorities when all this hit was to, you know, make sure their people are safe, to talk about working from home. But pretty quickly, the conversation pivoted to the fact that there's a tremendous amount of financial stress out there with employees, and we're as busy as ever. We introduced a really impactful program that was focused on furloughed employees and displaced employees through a partner, and that received a lot of good feedback in the marketplace. And, interestingly, a lot of organizations that might not have seen this quite as much of a priority are starting to look at financial health as a more prominent component of their strategy. So it's still tough because everyone's, challenged, budgets are tight and so forth, but we're trying to be creative and helping employers understand that, financial stress is real for their employees, and we can really help them make a difference.
That's great. So last question before we jump to Q&A. So we'll do this kind of a faster round. What innovative businesses do you admire and why? So I guess we'll just have time for one apiece. So Dan, you want to just continue on?
Yeah, I would say BatteryXchange and Vision. How's that?
He answered right. That's so weird.
It's easy to say Amazon and, even like locally the Red Ventures and the AvidXchange and the Lender Trees, but companies like these, I truly admire because it's not easy. I mean, like we're all saying, we constantly have to pivot and innovate. And I've for the last 5 years, I've been between Innovate Charlotte and QC FinTech and others, I've been volunteering to mentor a lot of founders. And it's just, those are the organizations that I admire most. People who sort of put it all on the line. They could be doing a lot of different things, but they've put it all on the line and are trying to do something really unique and distinctive and solve real problems. So more than you wanted to hear, but I have a lot of passion for earlier stage companies that are really making a difference and are at a point where they're starting to see really good growth.
How about you, Desmond?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to say Amazon, but for like personal reasons. However you feel about Jeff Bezos, he is still the GOAT, to be honest. Character-wise, that's a whole nother thing. But I think just businessman, innovative leader, and just for us, like, we're a product company. He started with books and, just kind of elevated to what he has now. And I think, that's some, company and honestly a leader that I, look to, just some of the decision making. I've read a bunch of his books. I've read, biographies, just like really immersing myself into that space because, in essence, I think that we could develop, again, like I said earlier, like bigger than where we're at now. And a lot of that is going to come from the individuals that you bring in place. And so he literally has a great framework for taking us to that next level to where we're relevant 20 years from now. So honestly, I know it's like the token company, but I mean, you got to respect them. And I really, really learned a lot from just studying them.
That's great. And how about you, Sam?
Yeah, I think the companies I learned the most from, to Dan's point, are probably the founders who I'm friends with, especially now. I think one of the things that was great, and Desmond and I spoke early when COVID started. I spoke with Amir at Rabu, Haley at SkillPop. You have Maggie at Skipper, like all of these folks who, if they are figuring out how to make things work in their own environment, they're typically experiencing the same issues that you're experiencing as a leader. And they're just a wealth of knowledge because every issue that you're dealing with personally, you're seeing your friends deal with the same thing, and being able to have that type of group think, especially when you're in different industries and you feel like you don't have to hold back, I think is probably the most valuable thing that you can do, at least in our stage as a company.
Yeah, and I think back to Dan's point about being inspired by both of you as founders and your businesses. I mean, the reason why I picked all three of you today was because, or back in February, was because I really do admire and respect what you all are doing. I think that you represent a range, and again, finding that need in the marketplace and then just going for it. I'm very inspired by that, and I think that it is a good way to for other people who may be considering something. We all have creative ideas. Everybody has ideas. We don't all act on them. So we've got five more minutes to handle any Q&As. I'm going to turn it over to Mike now. Mike, if you can come back in the mix. We've seen in the chat some other comments and stuff, but there is at least one question so far that I know, Sam, you answered in the Q&A, but I'd like to actually, because we're filming this or recording this, I'd like to make sure that we have a chance for you to answer it in the recording. So Mike, I'm going to turn the Q&A over to you now.
Sounds good. Yeah, so let's start. V Winter asked for the Vision platform, Vision.co platform, do you train machine learning models to identify colors? So Sam, you can share with us.
Yeah, and you have to commend V for, that's a great question. And I think Desmond probably knows this too. You get some really crappy questions as far as when you're pitching and you're like, wow, this person doesn't get what I do at all. Machine learning is very much on point as far as the direction in which we're going. Right now, the way that our technology works is that we pick up the most prevalent colors initially within the image through a product feed. But especially with patterns or things that aren't flat colors, there can be a wide range of colors, especially including shadows, that really affect the way that we think of color and what we imagine will come back. If I say I want that orange, even in one product, you'll probably have 100 variations, at least, even when it's a flat color of that orange. So being able to use machine learning, the way that we work with it is anytime that someone conducts a search, we do run an additional layer of picking a color within the image. So every time you conduct a search, it does get smarter as far as being able to say which colors are most relevant to what the end. Good question.
Nice, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already on all three of your websites. I'm so intrigued and interested in what all three of you are doing, and I've already shared, Sam, I've already shared your website with my girlfriend. I texted it to her at the top of the program. I was like, sounds like something we need to check out. So
I like it. And Desmond has a new house, so I'm like, hey, Desmond, what's good?
I knew you were going to bring that up. I knew you were going to bring that up.
Where's my shadow? I'm sitting right here.
She'll never miss a business development opportunity, right?
Yeah, of course.
That's
so
right.
In essence, my wife does know about it because, of course, Gira, my founder friend, so she totally knows about you. But I've actually been spreading your name with a lot of other individuals that I've been recently getting connected with in the just like coming into like the aesthetics world or whatever, and they're getting into like home design. So I was just actually at an event. So you probably got some more leads or people that want to partner with you in the future. I
love
got
it.
you.
I got you too. That's what we have each other for.
we love the networking on the Triple Threat panel, even amongst the panelists. If anyone else has a question that they'd like to ask, feel free to throw it in. I've one thing that, if anyone else is thinking, I loved hearing a little bit of all of the different programs and accelerators and things that you guys have been participating in, and the ways that you're sort of aligning your vision with your team and all of that. I'm curious, is there anything maybe that you haven't mentioned yet on a personal level for any of you that you're just like really excited about in terms of a prospect in your business, or something cool, or even a shiny object that you're like really interested in sort of chasing right now that you think could be worth exploring in your business?
Yeah, I think to Dan's point, one of the things that we have been exploring a lot is partnerships. So we're talking to large organizations who people know in home that can help elevate us as far as leaning on, because the one thing for a startup that is going to always be hard, and your answer when people ask you, what are you doing for marketing, can't be social media. Usually you have to be dependent upon larger people to pull you up. So for us, hopefully you'll see within the next few weeks some larger players that we're going to be working with to make that happen.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll give 1.2. So I think I referenced it earlier, but we do have this crowdfunding campaign that's still open. And so for us, I think it's even more important now. I see a lot of people like in my community wanting to build out wealth. You talk about Belak wealth and opportunities to do that. Individuals are getting into the investment space. So I've always been an advocate of crowdfunding. It's, it depends, right? And you just kind of have to have the right game plan. But I think especially in some of the communities that I'm kind of getting into with minority founders, I think that they have a great opportunity to leverage their community to become investors, to get that capital, so that you don't have to go to like a VC or, wait for a fund to kind of come around. And so, literally we're kind of like the leaders in that right now, but, just really opening up the door to make that even a little bit more normal. So that's kind of something else that I'm looking to do, another big plunge on the marketing realm for our crowdfund.
Very cool.
Yeah, and for us, we've got a couple of, I mentioned before, these partnerships. We've got one or two that they take a while to develop, but they could be pretty transformational for us. And so we're working really hard to try to put a couple of these things up. So it's number of good things going on.
Awesome. Thanks all for sharing. There's one more question, and this one is for Desmond for BatteryXchange. How do you track which charger stations are fully charged at a particular point in time? From V.
Oh, V, you got the best questions. But so honestly, everything kind of leads from like our central management software. So in essence, the kiosk communicates every second really to the central management software as far as like how charged a battery is, the amount of available batteries for individuals to rent. So within the application, you'll be able to see a kiosk machine and know that there's 5 available batteries left, so that you don't walk there and there's no batteries. And I think another cool part is if I were to go and return my battery and it's fully depleted, if you come right after me, you're not going to get that same battery. So the technology pretty much knows which battery is like most charged, and it's going to in essence give you that instead of giving you one that's like only 25% charged. And that's all through our pretty much like the back-end central management software. So it's pretty cool and intuitive.
That's great.
That's really cool to hear. I think we're all set, Lisa.
Yeah, well, thank you all so much for being here today. I'm so thrilled. It's been, a few months in the making now to make this happen virtually, but I'm thrilled and so excited to have more people know about your businesses. Oh, I see Kevin popped on. Hey, Kevin. So was there anything
and we can't wait to get back to BatteryXchange, to Advent.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you all. Was there anything, Kevin, you wanted to say at the end as we're wrapping up? I just saw your face, so I just want to make sure.
Sorry, I didn't want to derail anything. No, I've been silently listening, feeding my child for the whole time. So I really enjoyed the session. Thank you for your candidness and help and wisdom.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good weekend. Okay.